The year is 1893. The time is Sunday morning, and the outlaw William Barksdale enters a small Kansas town and opens fire on the congregation of the local Baptist church. During the episode, he reloads his Colt .45 Peacemaker 11 times, killing a total of 19 adults and 7 children. When the marshal arrived, he turned the gun on himself. Later, local authorities found his manifesto in his saddlebag. No, they didn't. None of that is reality. I just made it up, and it took me like 6 times to get through it with a straight face. The fact is that handheld, repeating firearms have been in wide circulation since the mid-1800s, but not active shooters. Not in the 1800s. Not in the first half of the 1900s. In the 1960s, we got a foretaste. But the real deal didn't start showing up until the 1980s. And that left us with something of a conundrum. What on earth was causing this thing? How do you take a functioning adult or even adolescent and suddenly find them unloading semi-automatic weapons on their fellow students or co-workers? Okay, I'll tell you how. Imagine 2 soccer fields, side by side. Now imagine that you're a player on one of those fields. You run, you pass the ball, you shoot, you have a goal, an objective. You're not the only person on the field making decisions. You've got other players around you, and even a coach. The decisions you make are based on this. You are a part of a larger picture. This is the way that people viewed life for nearly the entire span of human history. Now imagine that you're on the other field. You've still got players running all around you. One of them isn't standing where they're supposed to be. Cut, 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 you yell. The others look at you like you've lost your mind, but you know. This isn't a game. It's a movie about a game. You're the writer, director, and of course, the main character. It's your movie. You're the star. And really the only thing that matters in it. Everyone is coming to see you, and they should be. They're right on time. This was the moment you were about to kick the go-ahead score. But right now, this yahoo isn't standing where he's supposed to be standing. So everything has to stop until Knucklehead here starts following his lines. Welcome to the 21st century. Welcome to the world of narcissistic ideation. Why does the active shooter go on their rampage? Because they've scripted out a world where they are the main character, the good guy. And this is the part of the script where they turn the tables on the villains. Why kill themselves? Or present themselves to law enforcement to be killed when confronted? Why not try and shoot it out or escape so that they can kill more of their coworkers or classmates later? Because that would be goal-oriented thinking. Like with the first soccer field. They're not thinking like that. This is a movie, remember? Their movie. Like the second soccer field. And if they grew up thinking of law enforcement as the good guys, then they will often kill themselves. Because if they shoot it out with the other good guys, well, how can they be a good guy? That would burst the imaginary bubble. Flip the script, if you will. And if they grew up thinking of law enforcement as a part of the oppressive machine, then they will typically present themselves in hopes of being killed by law enforcement. And in that way, they end the movie with their final moment of vindication. You see? I told you they were oppressing me. Look, they even killed me. Life as a story. Life as a story arc. And this presents us with a problem. You see, the typical response to all this is, why didn't they just get him some help? The assumption being there actually is some sort of help out there, and the only reason our government isn't connecting the sick people with the right medical treatment is that it just doesn't fit into their selfish political agendas for some reason. And there certainly is a whole psychiatric community out there, but the idea that mental health works in the same way as physical health is a myth. Most of the people we take into protective custody and transport to these psychiatric hospitals get to talk to a counselor, get held overnight, get a prescription for a drug that's not going to fix the problem. It's just going to inhibit their ability to feel anything. And in the same way that painkillers don't cure cancer, these psychoactive drugs don't cure mental illness. Think about it. The body naturally heals itself. And much of what happens in a hospital emergency room is just meant to stabilize the patient until the natural healing process can take over. But it doesn't work like that if the problem is your thought process. Most of the people we take into custody for mental disturbance are repeat offenders. If we take them once, we're going to take them again and again. And this isn't to bash the psychiatric community. I think a lot of them are doing the best that they can. And if you're in the grips of mental illness, they're your best hope. But my point here is that whereas a sick body will tend to heal itself, a sick mind that is sick because it has embraced a particular thought process that just tends to be incredibly destructive, well, it usually won't. Now, we've talked about active shooters, and those are an extreme. I mean, obviously, you have to have a pretty serious conviction in your worldview to carry it out to your death. But now, in this day and age, we're seeing less extreme forms of this everywhere we look. Consider 2 examples of the relationship breakdown I talked about in the last video. We'll start with the ladies and finish with the real shocker on the men's side. First, ladies. I saw a news article a couple years ago written by a woman lamenting the fact that she had broken up with nice guys in her younger day. You know, holding out for the one, only to find herself in her late 40s and all alone. Why? What does it mean to find the one? In 1811, Miss Jane Austen wrote the first novel in a style of writing that would come to be known as romance. Really, it doesn't go back any farther than that. Everything prior either had witches and dragons, or, a serious body count. Sorry, Taylor Swift, Romeo and Juliet was not a love story. It belonged to a genre of writing known as tragedy. But with Sense and Sensibility, the world started getting a taste of story forms that had realistic characters in a realistic setting, having all of their problems solved by meeting the one, the rich, talented, good-looking heart of gold man who only had eyes for them. And voila, all their problems go away. They're happy and fulfilled forever. Sounds like a religion, doesn't it? And just what happens when a person's expectations are set not by what a real relationship can actually provide, but by a wish fulfillment storyline? You get a 50% divorce rate, and 80 to 90% of those divorces are initiated by the wife. A lot of them because he just wasn't satisfying the deepest longings of her soul for some odd reason. But he's not Jesus, says anyone with a rational thought in their head. That was never going to happen. So your marriage was set up for failure before you ever said I do, and suddenly, confusing reality and fiction has real-world consequences. But don't lose hope yet, ladies, because it's not 1811 anymore, it's 2020, and in the current year, more and more we see men like this guy.
Manlets.
I don't have a job. I am ugly.
Have you approached many women?
Oh, many.
And what was the result?
Rejection 100% of the time.
Well, the line forms to the left. That guy goes on to say that he would do anything just to experience intimacy, even go off to war and lose a limb. And how romantic is that? To do anything except, get a job. And going off to war is kind of out of the question at that point, since in this country we only send soldiers off to war. And being a soldier is, a job. So, what storyline is this guy bought into? Oh boy. Incel stands for involuntarily celibate. What we used to call being single up until a few years ago. So, why don't they just call themselves single? Because they think that what women really want is sex apart from any sort of meaningful relationship. Except these women only want it with what they call a Chad, a confident, well-built, good-looking guy. But, you say, that's about as far removed from the truth as you could be. The whole reason we have prostitution is because one gender, men, wants sex, often apart from any sort of meaningful relationship. And since women rarely find that fulfilling, the prostitute accepts cash as a substitute. So, what story form is this guy bought into? Oh yeah. In 2020, we've got guys who have almost no social interaction with living, breathing human females. They don't know what women really want. What they think they know has come from hours upon hours of pornography. And for the ones who lose touch with reality, they think that's what women are really like. Having somehow lost the thread that those are paid performers who are only there because that's their job. So when this guy is just offhandedly asking 3,000 women for sex without a job, In other words, without any means of at least being able to support himself, let alone her, what he's really offering is uncompensated prostitution. And he's so disconnected from life here on planet Earth that he doesn't know why they don't just jump at that offer. And if that doesn't sound scary enough, tune in next time for part 3, and I'll tell you where we're all headed with this thing. This is David Reichert from The Bunker. Hit like and subscribe and click the notification bell, and we'll try and put out at least one video a week. Also, our pandemic horror series, The Holocaust Engine, is available September 14th. Link for pre-order down below.